Let me start with a question that might make you uncomfortable, and that's exactly why it matters. If you're not where you want to be in your life right now, not financially, not emotionally, not physically, not spiritually, what if the reason has nothing to do with your resources, your background, or the people around you? What if the real reason is something much closer to home? Because the truth is, most people don't fail because they aim too high. They fail because they settle too low. They lower their standards. They negotiate with their potential. And then they wonder why life feels stuck on repeat. You don't get what you want in life. You get what you tolerate. And that single idea alone has the power to change everything, if you're willing to face it. Honestly, personal responsibility is the foundation of real change. And until a person truly understands this, life will continue to feel like something that just happens to them instead of something they consciously create. It's a hard truth because responsibility removes the comfort of excuses, and excuses are what keep most people emotionally safe while staying exactly where they are. When you take responsibility, you stop waiting for permission, for perfect timing, or for someone else to fix what feels broken. You realize that blaming circumstances may protect your ego, but it costs you your future. Every result you are living today, whether you love it or resent it, was shaped by choices you made, choices you avoided, or choices you delayed, and that realization can feel heavy at first, but it is also the most liberating thing you will ever experience. Most people misunderstand responsibility and confuse it with guilt or self-criticism, but responsibility is not about beating yourself up for the past, it's about reclaiming your power in the present. The moment you say, "This is my life and I am responsible for where it's going," you move from victim to creator. You stop asking why things are unfair and start asking what needs to change in me for my life to change. Responsibility shifts your focus from what you can't control to what you can, your mindset, your habits, your standards, your actions when motivation is low and pressure is high. And that shift alone begins to change how you show up in the world. The reason responsibility is so uncomfortable is because it demands honesty. It asks you to look at the patterns you've been repeating, the commitments you've been breaking to yourself, and the standards you've been accepting that don't reflect your true potential. It forces you to confront the gap between who you say you want to be and how you actually live day to day. But inside that discomfort is clarity, because once you see the truth clearly, you can no longer pretend that change is impossible. You may not be responsible for everything that happened to you, but you are responsible for what you do next. And that distinction changes everything. When you fully accept responsibility, you stop waiting for motivation and start acting from decision. You don't rely on feeling ready, you rely on discipline and purpose. You begin to understand that confidence doesn't come before action, it comes because of action. Each small promise you keep to yourself builds momentum, and momentum builds belief. Over time, you realize that the life you want is not created by one dramatic breakthrough, but by a series of ordinary choices made consistently at a higher standard. Responsibility also changes how you see failure. Instead of seeing it as proof that you are not enough, you see it as feedback, information that helps you adjust your approach. You stop quitting on yourself at the first sign of difficulty and start developing resilience. You understand that growth is not comfortable, but neither is staying stuck, and only one of those paths leads to fulfillment. When you stop outsourcing your power to circumstances and start owning your role in every outcome, you awaken a level of strength you may have forgotten you had. And from that place, real and lasting change begins to take shape in your thoughts, your actions, and ultimately your destiny. Comfort, not lack of ability, is what keeps most people stuck far below their true potential. And this truth can be difficult to accept because it challenges the idea that something outside of us is holding us back. Most people already have more capability, intelligence, and opportunity than they will ever fully use, yet they stay in the same place year after year because comfort feels safe, familiar, and predictable. Comfort doesn't demand growth, it doesn't ask hard questions, and it doesn't require you to risk failure or judgment. Over time, that sense of safety becomes a quiet trap, one that feels harmless until you realize how much of your life has been spent settling instead of stretching. The human mind is designed to avoid pain and seek pleasure, and comfort satisfies both in the short term. It allows you to avoid the discomfort of discipline, the pain of rejection, and the uncertainty of trying something new. But while comfort protects you from immediate discomfort, it also blocks long-term fulfillment. The goals you say you want, whether it's confidence, success, freedom, or impact, live on the other side of habits that feel inconvenient and choices that feel uncomfortable at first. Growth always requires you to do what is uncomfortable now in order to experience what is extraordinary later, and most people never make that trade. What makes comfort especially dangerous is that it rarely feels like failure. It often looks like being busy, being responsible, or being realistic. You tell yourself you'll start when the timing is better, when you have more energy, or when circumstances improve. But days turn into months, and months turn into years, and one day you look back and realize that the cost of comfort was not immediate pain, but long-term regret. The tragedy is not that people fail, it's that they never truly try, because trying fully would require them to step beyond what feels safe. When someone finally breaks free from comfort, it's usually not because they suddenly found new abilities, but because the pain of staying the same became greater than the pain of change. At that moment, excuses lose their power and urgency takes over. You realize that the discomfort you've been avoiding is temporary, but the consequences of inaction are permanent. That realization creates a shift where growth becomes a necessity rather than an option, and action becomes non-negotiable. The truth is, you don't need more talent to move forward. You need higher standards for how you live and what you accept from yourself. You need to be willing to be uncomfortable, to feel awkward, to make mistakes, and to keep going anyway. Comfort whispers that you deserve rest before you've earned progress, while growth demands that you show up even when you don't feel like it. When you choose growth over comfort consistently, you begin to uncover abilities you didn't know you had, and you realize that the life you want has always been within reach, waiting on the other side of the comfort zone you've been protecting for far too long. Your daily standards silently shape your destiny, even when you are not conscious. Be aware of them, because life always moves in alignment with what you decide is acceptable. A standard is not what you say you want. It is what you consistently allow. And that distinction explains why so many people feel disconnected from the future they dream about. You may talk about wanting success, confidence, or freedom, but if your standards around discipline, focus, and follow-through remain low, your results will always reflect that gap. The quality of your life is not determined by your intentions, but by the standards you live by when no one is watching. Standards show up in the small, seemingly insignificant moments of your day. They appear in how you speak to yourself when you make a mistake, in whether you keep your word to yourself when it's inconvenient, and in what you tolerate from your environment and the people around you. Every time you accept less than you know you're capable of, you reinforce an identity that says this is good enough, and over time that identity becomes a ceiling on your potential. The danger is that this process is gradual, so it rarely triggers alarm, yet it quietly shapes the direction of your entire life. Raising your standards is not about being perfect or demanding more from others. It's about deciding who you are and refusing to live below that decision. It's the moment you stop negotiating with your values and start honoring them through action. When you raise your standards, you don't wait for motivation, you act from commitment. You don't rely on external pressure, you create internal expectations that guide your behavior. That shift changes how you show up, how you speak, and how you respond to challenges. And the world begins to respond differently to you as a result. Many people confuse standards with goals, but goals are outcomes, while standards are lifestyles. A goal might be to get in shape, but a standard, refusing to miss workouts. A goal might be to grow a business, but a standard is following through on difficult tasks, even when results are slow. Goals can inspire you temporarily, but standards sustain you permanently. When your standards rise, your actions become more consistent, and consistency is what creates momentum and confidence over time. The most powerful standards are enforced in private, long before they are visible to others. They are built through small promises kept daily, choices made when comfort tempts you to settle, and decisions to act in alignment with your future rather than your moods. As your standards rise, so does your sense of self-respect, and with that comes a deeper belief in what you can achieve. You begin to realize that destiny is not something that happens to you. It is something you shape through the standards you choose to live by each day. And when those standards change, everything else eventually follows right along with them. The stories you tell yourself determine your limits because your mind is constantly searching for meaning. And whatever meaning you give an experience becomes the rule you live by. Every human being runs on internal narratives, interpretations about who they are, what they deserve, and what is possible for them. These stories are often formed early, reinforced through experience, and repeated so often that they feel like facts rather than opinions. When you say things like, "This is just the way I am, I'm not lucky, I always mess things up, or people like me don't succeed," you are not describing reality, you are scripting it. Your brain believes what you tell it repeatedly, and then it organizes your behavior to stay consistent with that belief. What makes these stories so powerful is that they operate mostly below the surface. You may consciously want more from life, but unconsciously you act in alignment with the identity your story supports. If your story says you're not good with money, you'll sabotage financial progress. If your story says you're not confident, you'll avoid opportunities that require visibility. The mind will always try to prove itself right, even if being right means staying stuck. This is why willpower alone rarely creates lasting change, because behavior will always return to the level of belief unless the story itself changes. Many people confuse their past experiences with their potential, assuming that what has happened before is evidence of what will always happen. But the past does not define your limits. Your interpretation of it does. Two people can go through the same failure, and one uses it as a reason to quit, while the other uses it as fuel to grow. The difference is not the event, it's the meaning assigned to it. When you change the meaning, you change the emotional response, and when you change the emotional response, you change your actions. Changing your story does not mean denying reality or pretending everything is positive. It means choosing a more empowering interpretation that serves your future instead of imprisoning you in the past. It means replacing "why does this always happen to me" with "what is this teaching me?" It means shifting from "I can't" to "how can I?" These questions redirect your focus from limitation to possibility, and where focus goes, energy follows. Over time, these small shifts in language reshape how you see yourself and what you believe you're capable of. The most important story you will ever tell is the one about who you are becoming. When you decide that you are someone who grows, learns, and persists, your actions begin to align with that. Identity. You stop seeing challenges as stop signs and start seeing them as signals to adapt. You realize that limits are not fixed, they are learned, and what has been learned can be unlearned. As your story evolves, so does your behavior. And as your behavior changes, so do your results, proving that the ceiling you once believed in was never real, only reinforced by a story that no longer deserves control over your future. Change happens the moment excuses end and decisions begin, because nothing transforms your life faster than a clear, committed choice backed by action. Excuses are subtle. They sound reasonable, logical, and even responsible. But their true function is to protect you from discomfort while keeping your life exactly the same. An excuse allows you to delay, to rationalize, and to shift responsibility without feeling guilty. But every time you accept one, you reinforce the identity of someone who reacts to life instead of directing it. Decisions, on the other hand, draw a line in the sand. They say this is no longer acceptable, and from that moment forward, your behavior must change. Most people think they have decided, when in reality they have only expressed a preference. They say they want to change, they hope things will improve, or they plan to start soon, but none of those create momentum. A true decision carries commitment, and commitment demands action even when emotions fluctuate. When you decide, you stop negotiating with your mood, your fear, or your circumstances. You may still feel uncertainty, but you act anyway. That is why decisions are powerful. They collapse doubt into direction and transform intention into movement. Excuses thrive in ambiguity, but decisions create clarity. When you are unclear, your mind looks for comfort and safety, and that's where excuses find their home. Once you decide, the question shifts from should I to how will I. This shift activates creativity, focus, and resourcefulness. You stop waiting for confidence and start building it through action. Each step taken in alignment with a decision reinforces your belief in yourself, and belief fuels consistency. The difference between people who change their lives and those who stay stuck is not that one group has fewer problems. It's that they make firm decisions earlier and stand by them longer. They understand that pain is part of growth, but so is pride, fulfillment, and self-respect. They accept temporary discomfort to avoid permanent regret. Instead of asking, what if it doesn't work? They ask, what will it cost me if I don't act now? That question cuts through hesitation and exposes the true price of delay. When excuses end, you reclaim your power. You stop giving circumstances authority over your future and start leading yourself with intention. Decisions don't remove obstacles, but they change how you respond to them. You become more resilient, more focused, and more willing to adapt. Over time, these decisions compound, reshaping your habits, your identity, and your results. You begin to see that the life you've been waiting for doesn't start with a breakthrough moment or a perfect plan. It starts with a decision made today, followed by another tomorrow, and another after that, until change is no longer something you chase, but something you live through the choices you refuse to abandon.